Like many of you, I really enjoyed Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valencia. It's a game that honestly surprised me. I never thought it was going to be bad per se, but I always had my sort of suspicions about it because it was very different from previous Fire Emblem games that I'd played. But when I finally got a chance to play it, it was really good. I mean, not flawless. While the narrative is solid for the most part, and the new features like dungeon exploration hold it up, poor map design and certain narrative fallacies kind of hold it back from being truly excellent. However, if there's one thing that Echoes has above the rest of the entire series, it's the gorgeous presentation. There are so many fantastic details that go a long way into making this one of, if not the best looking and sounding Fire Emblem games of all time. Presentation goes a long way, so that's why I'd like to go over a few of the things that I found really held up this game's presentation. In a top 5 format, of course, because that concept is original, right? Meh. Since Path of Radiance in 2005, Fire Emblem has had CG cutscenes mixed in with the rest of the usually text-based narrative.
Sans Shadow Dragon.
And Fire Emblem Echoes is no exception, this time going for a more 2D mixed with 3D style. I put the cutscenes at the bottom of this list because while I think the cutscenes are pretty dang good, I don't think they're as good as they could have been, or even as good as previous entries in the series. Unlike the last 2 games, Awakening and Fates, Echoes cutscenes were done by Studio Kara, who have done work on things like Gurren Lagann, Evangelion, and Halo Legends. The cutscenes themselves are very well directed, with some fantastic artwork, engaging backgrounds, great lighting, and stellar visual effects. That being said, while some of the cutscenes flow seamlessly with wonderful motion, line work, and facial expressions, others tend to feel kinda stiff, especially some of the slower, more dialogue-heavy scenes. The 3D effects sometimes work, but other times I kinda get Berserk 2016 vibes. I think if they were given a little bit more time and perhaps a higher budget, I think these cutscenes would truly be a perfect icing on the Echoes cake. This is really the only aspect of presentation that I think was done better in previous entries, and that's why it sits here at the bottom. But hey, I guess that means we have nowhere to go but up at this point. The original Fire Emblem Gaiden is notorious for having the clunkiest, most aesthetically off-putting UI in the history of the series, and even the NES itself. I tried playing it for like 10 minutes and I could barely make it function. I'm sorry, Kyle, I tried. I really tried. It's part of what made Gaiden come to be known as the black sheep of the series. Thankfully, the UI in Echoes is not only organized and easy to follow, but also very aesthetically pleasing. Some would argue that this is more of a gameplay aspect rather than a presentation one, and you can make that argument, but I'm more talking about how it looks and gels with the game's presentation rather than how it feels to play with it. The dark crimson color scheme of text boxes, status screens, and menus is a wonderful choice that kind of complements the game's tone. More importantly though, the way information is displayed reminds me perfectly why Fire Emblem fits so well on the 3DS. Having a second screen to display most of the information without the push of a button is a godsend. I also love the way the portrait is shown in the background of the status screen as opposed to the Windows style of the previous games. It's just a little minor thing, but I think it's a nice thing to be able to see the portrait and like zoom in on it. It's a really nice feature. I like it. It's gonna be really weird to go back into the single screen format when FE16 hits the Nintendo Switch sometime next year. But for now, I'm totally okay with this. Fire Emblem portrait and character design has varied quite significantly across the series, from the 16-bit sprites of the GBA era, to the flat color, more cartoon-like portraits of Path of Radiance, the more proportioned, shaded designs of Radiant Dawn, to whatever the hell Shadow Dragon is. I don't know. What style is that? It's like sprite work, but it's not. But like, what? What I'm trying to say is the Shadow Dragon portrait sucked. Anyway, the characters of the past 2 games, Awakening and Fates, as well as Fire Emblem Heroes, were designed by the manga artist Yusuke Kozaki, who seems to be the current regular for the series, though we'll see if he sticks around for FE16. While I and many others do seem to enjoy his art style and design, sometimes, That style doesn't really fit with the themes or characters of Echoes. So IS went with a new artist, Hidari, to design the characters and the portraits. And oh boy, was this game blessed for it. Now, some would say this shouldn't really count because these are characters from an already existing game, so Hidari already had a huge advantage. While that may be somewhat the case, honestly, most of the redesigns barely resemble their Gaiden counterparts at all. I mean, hell, just look at Bowie. Be careful who you call ugly in middle school, am I right? Hey-o. Alright, I'm just gonna go now. Terrible. I really adore these character designs. The characters all sport poses that already show a distinct level of personality from the very first look, and the designs themselves are eye-catching without going over the top. There's a tiny bit of fan service in some of the designs, but because of how minimal it is here, it doesn't come off as distracting or obnoxious pandering. Now, if I were a guessing man, I'd still say Kozaki will likely be the one to design for the Switch, but I certainly would not be opposed to more characters designed by Hidari. Perhaps if the Echoes line of future remakes is an actual thing, Hidari can be called in to do the design for those. I mean, could you imagine Hector, or Roy, or even Seliph in this art style? Now, the fact that this game has full voice acting has been talked about and praised several times over by just about everyone, and frankly, I firmly agree. Not only is there full voice acting, but good full voice acting. Strictly talking about the English release of the game, 8-4 did a tremendous job with casting and voice direction to give almost every character an A+ performance. Now, if I had to choose an absolute standout in this regard, I'd have to pick Berkut. Funimation regular Ian Sinclair gives a tour de force of acting prowess with his performance as Berkut. It's a blessing from Milla herself that this character was given such excellent dialogue to work with. And Ian's voice adds a whole new dimension to the writing and the character.
Do try to make this little exercise worth my time.
Particularly from Act 4 onward, his bitterness and resentment of Alm leading down to anger and frustration.
Damn him! Why can't I beat him? To be humiliated so by a commoner, and twice no less!
To go completely mad and go against his moral code for the sake of power. It's a menacing but absolutely believable turn that Ian managed to sell so well that Berkut might just be my favorite Fire Emblem antagonist to date. Seriously. The guy has so much range, it's sometimes hard to believe that this guy also voices this guy.
See if you're enlightened like I am. Then you know that the real show is down below. The booty, baby.
And this guy.
Oh, it's delicious.
Yeah. He's not the only standout, though. Jeremy Lee is delightfully energetic as May. David Sylvain has a gruff charm that makes Saber really likable. And even Kyle McCarley really sells it as the main protagonist, Alm. Especially in the latter half of the game where we get to see Alm deal with the consequences of his actions and figure out who he is. Incidentally, Kyle has been streaming the game on Twitch these past few weeks, so if you ever wanted to see Alm play as Alm, you can go over to his Twitch and catch his streams.
That should be in the game.
Shut up,
Anyway, full voice acting is a feature that I truly hope becomes a regular for the series. Warriors has already been confirmed to have it, so there is hope yet for it to appear in the next title on Switch. My number one pick might come as a surprise to many of you, as I don't see this aspect talked about very much. Admittedly, it's a pretty small feature, but I feel it goes a long way. The other thing is that it might technically be considered a narrative / character / story thing rather than presentation, but I don't know, I thought it was presentation and this is my list, so I want to talk about it. Death is a very important part of Fire Emblem. Not just in the story, but as an entire gameplay mechanic. Life and death is a key part of a player's motivation to play smart, and also to learn and care about the characters. When a character dies in Fire Emblem, it can be absolutely devastating for a player, both from a gameplay standpoint and an emotional one. While the permadeath mechanic is not totally unique to Fire Emblem, it does set it above most RPGs, and it's an important staple to the series, and no casual mode or Milla's Turnwheel can ever change that. That said, something I've noticed is that while death is very important to the player when it comes to playing Fire Emblem, it never seems so important to the rest of the characters. What I mean is that it never seems important to the characters unless it's a plot death or a death that happens between chapters or in a cutscene. A standard permadeath is just, they say a death quote, and then the character's dead. And sure, you feel upset because you grew attached to that character, and you trained them up and got them all the best skills and weapons, but nobody else seems to care. That all changes in Fire Emblem Echoes. During the bonus EXP screen, while some characters will have a post-battle quote saying something like, "That was a good battle," or "Man, that was tough," or "I wish it were always that easy," sometimes a character will also indicate their fatigue status. However, there's one other conditional line characters will say during this screen. If a unit was near another unit when they died, the surviving unit will say a line mourning their death. This is huge. Oftentimes the line will just be a generic line that they will say no matter who died.
No, I hate this.
We paid a high price for this day.
Oh gods, this is terrible.
But some of these are character specific, and these are both wonderful to hear and also really heartbreaking.
Claire. Oh, gods, Claire. How could this happen?
Dorothea! Dorothea, open your eyes!
The way some characters react to their friends dying can vary from denial.
For goodness sake, Python, get up! Python?
Come on, Gray, quit messing around. Gray? Gray!
To disbelief.
May? May, this isn't funny!
To anger.
Tobin, you idiot! What were you thinking?
To just straight up breaking down.
Zeke! Zeke, no!
Clive! No, my love, stay with me!
No! I can't go on without the three of us! Get up, Lou, you big dummy! Get up!
I absolutely adore this feature. Having the characters react to their comrade's death gives them so much depth and truly communicates to the player how real they feel. It brings the point home that not only do these characters care about each other, but they're in the middle of a war. One where each battle could be their last. And when comrades head into battle, it could be the last time they see each other. It might seem like a small thing, being that it's only a line of dialogue, but it implies such huge ramifications that I just couldn't help putting it at the top of my list. You may disagree, but I really think this is one of the most fantastic features Fire Emblem has had, and I'd love to see it expanded in future games. Anyway, that was my list of the top 5 things about Echo's presentation that I just really loved. Thank you guys so much for watching. This is the first time in a long time that I've done a video like this, so I'd really appreciate if you guys leave a like and a comment, and maybe subscribe if you like what you see and you'd like to see more stuff like this. I would be happy to make more. In fact, I already have a couple ideas that I'm working on, one of which is in production right now. As for the next video, well, I'm gonna try and go to Mach speed to try and get it done, if you know what I mean.